chosen one. That feeling of being different, of not belonging no matter how hard you try, it's not a flaw. It's your divine marking. God intentionally set you apart from the crowd. And today I'm going to reveal why your uniqueness is actually your greatest blessing. Have you ever felt like you don't quite fit in? Like the world expects you to conform, but you just can't seem to blend in, no matter how hard you try? Well, what if I told you that this feeling of difference is actually a sign of something far greater? It's not a coincidence, and it's certainly not a curse. No, this is the mark of someone chosen, someone set apart for a divine purpose. And today, I'm going to help you understand why everything that made you feel like an outsider is exactly what the world needs right now. So if you've ever struggled with the feeling of not belonging, this message is for you. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see your entire journey. You didn't just happen. You were chosen. Before your family named you, before you were even formed in the womb, your name was already known in heaven. God didn't wait to see who you would become. He already had the vision. He knew exactly who you were, and He chose you with divine intention. You were not a random soul placed on earth to survive the noise of life. You were crafted, marked, and assigned by heaven for a mission unlike anyone else's. The world may not have understood you, but the one who made you always did. You were selected by a higher order, and that selection came with both great favor and great responsibility. Jeremiah 1:5 says it clearly, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That's not just poetic language, that's a spiritual contract. God had already written your identity, your calling, and your timeline into the fabric of eternity. You were born into time, but chosen from eternity. And when you understand that, everything that once confused you starts to make sense. Why you felt different, why you couldn't follow the crowd, why your heart burned for something greater, even when you couldn't explain it. That deep inner restlessness, that's not rebellion, it's revelation. It's the echo of your calling trying to wake you up from the sleep of fitting in. There's a reason why you've always sensed something was different about you. And it's not pride, it's prophecy. You were born with a spiritual distinction that others couldn't see, but your soul could never ignore. And that distinction came with weight. You've had to carry rejection that wasn't fair. You've had to walk alone when others were surrounded. You've had to battle internal wars that didn't make sense on the surface. But God allowed every one of those things because He was shielding what He was shaping. You see, divine selection often comes with divine isolation, not as punishment, but as preservation. God hid you in plain sight because the world was not ready for what He placed inside you. Even when you didn't know Him, He knew you. Even when you doubted yourself, He still affirmed you. And even when others looked past you, heaven never stopped watching over you. You were marked, not for ordinary, but for greatness. That's why average never satisfied you. That's why mediocrity made you uncomfortable. That's why you kept feeling like there was more, because there is more. You were never created to live a life of quiet compromise. You were created to disrupt darkness, to shift atmospheres, to carry glory that this world desperately needs. So no, your difference is not a flaw. It is a fingerprint, heaven's fingerprint. And the moment you stop running from it and start owning it, everything begins to align. The people, the resources, the doors, they don't open for who you pretend to be. They open for who you were chosen to be. And today, if you've ever questioned your place, your purpose, or your path, let this be your confirmation. You were divinely selected, set apart, marked before time began. And God's not finished revealing why He chose you. From an early age, something felt off, not wrong, just different. While other kids blended effortlessly into their surroundings, you often found yourself standing at the edges, observing more than participating, sensing more than speaking. You noticed things others didn't. You felt emotions that seemed too deep for your age. And even when you tried to fit in, something invisible pushed you to the outside. You were present in rooms, but not fully accepted. You were spoken to, but not fully understood. and no one could explain why. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "You're not like the rest." Maybe you were the child who asked too many questions, the one who saw meaning in moments others brushed off. While others laughed at surface-level jokes, your spirit craved something deeper. You noticed pain behind people's smiles. You sensed when something was wrong in the atmosphere. You carried a sensitivity that others mocked or misunderstood. You were told you were too emotional, too intense, or even too strange. But what they called a weakness was really a gift, an unrefined prophetic discernment that God placed in you from the beginning. Your dreams were not like other children's dreams. They were vivid, spiritual, sometimes terrifying. You saw things you didn't have words for. You may have even told an adult and watched their face change, not with understanding, but with confusion or dismissal. So, you learned to keep it to yourself. You started burying the very thing that made you unique. But the more you tried to hide it, the more it refused to be silenced. Because it wasn't just part of your personality, it was part of your calling. You may have wondered why friendships were difficult, why you were the one picked last, forgotten, or even betrayed. It hurt, and you didn't have the language back then to make sense of it. But what if I told you that much of what you experienced was not rejection? It was redirection. God was shielding you from premature attachments that would have diluted your identity. He allowed the loneliness because he was shaping you in secret. While others were learning how to fit in, God was teaching you how to stand out. While others followed crowds, you were being trained to listen to whispers from heaven. The moments that brought you pain were actually the earliest confirmations of your calling. Those tears, those quiet nights asking, "Why don't I belong?" They were the questions of a soul that heaven had already marked. And now looking back, you can trace the thread. You weren't rebellious. You were righteous before you even knew what righteousness meant. You weren't strange. You were spiritually saturated. And everything that made you feel off was actually evidence that you were right on track with a divine design. So don't look at your childhood wounds with shame. Look at them with revelation. Every misunderstood moment, every label placed on you, every door that didn't open, they all point to one undeniable truth. You were different because you were chosen. The signs were there from the start, and now God is bringing you into the season where what was once misunderstood will finally be honored. The pain of your past is turning into the platform of your purpose. You didn't fit in because you weren't meant to. You were set apart, even as a child, for such a time as this. She was the quiet one in every room, never the center of attention, never the one they celebrated. Her name was never on the list of most likely to succeed. In fact, it was often left off the list entirely. Her childhood was marked by rejection so subtle it didn't look like cruelty, but it felt like it. She would enter a room and feel the invisible wall. Smiles that didn't reach the eyes, invitations that never came. Teachers overlooked her. Friends misunderstood her. Even family said she was too much or not enough. She cried herself to sleep more times than she could count, asking God, "What's wrong with me?" As she grew older, the rejection grew louder. Jobs that slipped through her fingers, relationships that left her crushed. Every time she tried to show her heart, someone would mishandle it. And so, little by little, she started hiding it. She built a mask. She learned how to smile through sorrow, laugh through loneliness, and speak life to others while feeling empty herself. She became strong, but it was a strength born from survival, not identity. On the outside, she seemed okay, but inside, she carried a question that haunted her. Why don't I belong anywhere? Then one day, during one of her lowest moments, she heard a whisper, not with her ears but in her spirit. It was clear, calm, and undeniable. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to lead. She fell to her knees and wept. Not because she was broken, but because for the first time in her life she felt seen by heaven. In that moment, something inside her cracked open. She realized the pain she had endured wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every rejection was actually a redirection. Every no was God's way of protecting what was sacred inside her. From that day on, she stopped apologizing for who she was. She stopped dimming her light to make others comfortable. She stopped begging for seats at tables God never told her to sit at. And when she did, everything changed. Her voice gained power. Her message became magnetic. People who once ignored her were now leaning in, asking how she carried such wisdom, such clarity, such presence. And the truth was simple. She had been through the fire, but it didn't burn her. It branded her. She didn't come out bitter. She came out chosen. Now she speaks to thousands, but not to impress them, to awaken them. She tells them what she wishes someone had told her. That rejection is not the end, it's the evidence. The evidence that you are marked. The evidence that you don't belong where others settle. The evidence that you were never called to be common, but to walk in covenant. Her story is not rare. It's just finally being revealed. And maybe, just maybe, it mirrors your own. If you've ever carried the silent pain of not belonging, if you've ever questioned your worth because of who walked away, if you've ever wondered why nothing about your path has been normal, let her testimony be your reminder. What feels like rejection now will one day be your reason to rise. You're not being left behind. You're being lifted up. Chosen ones don't fit in because they're called to stand out. Let's talk about those silent seasons. The ones where the phone didn't ring, where your name wasn't called, where doors stayed shut no matter how hard you knocked, where it felt like the world was spinning for everyone else, but you were stuck in place. You looked around and saw others finding community, connection, celebration, and yet you sat in silence. You questioned your worth. You wondered if you had done something wrong. You started asking God, why am I always alone? But what if that loneliness wasn't a punishment? What if it was protection? You see, there's something sacred about isolation when it's God-ordained. It's not the kind of loneliness that leaves you broken. It's the kind that brings you back to the builder. When God isolates a person, it's never to harm them. It's to hide them, to preserve what He's developing, to keep them covered while their identity is still being shaped. Because when you're chosen, there are parts of your life that cannot be touched by premature exposure. He will separate you before He showcases you. And many never make it through that separation process because they misinterpret it as abandonment. But make no mistake, some of the greatest moves of God are birthed in secret places. Moses was isolated on the backside of the desert. David was kept in the fields far from the palace. Joseph was thrown into a pit and then into prison. Even Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness before stepping into His public ministry. Why? Because isolation is where heaven does its deepest work, where distractions are removed, where identities are clarified, where voices around you grow silent so the voice within you can rise, where God becomes your only option and your greatest revelation. When no one was calling you, God was. When no one was supporting you, heaven was surrounding you. When you felt invisible to people, you were being intensely visible to angels. That silence wasn't empty, it was full of spiritual activity. You weren't alone, you were being aligned, positioned, refined. Every tear you cried in that season didn't hit the ground without heaven noticing. You were being carved, not crushed, protected, not punished. And yes, it was hard, because we're wired for connection. We long to be seen, to be heard, to be embraced. But here's the truth that most won't tell you. Not everyone deserves access to you while you're in the becoming. God will not allow people to mishandle you when your calling is still delicate. He loves you too much to let others plant doubt in what He's growing. So He covers you, not with shame, but with strategy. He puts you in the quiet place, the hidden place, the uncomfortable place, to form the unshakable version of you that this next season will require. So if you're still in that place right now, if the silence hasn't lifted yet, if the doors haven't opened, don't let despair speak louder than destiny. God hasn't forgotten you. He's just forming you away from the noise. Trust the process, because when God finally reveals you, it will be undeniable. The isolation you once hated will become the sanctuary you thank Him for. You'll look back and realize he wasn't leaving you out. He was setting you apart. They called it strange. They labeled it weird. They looked at the way you processed the world, how you felt everything so deeply, how you saw beauty in broken places, how you noticed things others missed, and they misunderstood it. What they didn't realize was that your oddities were never flaws. They were divine fingerprints. God didn't make a mistake when He made you different. He was placing something rare within you, something so powerful, so specific, so heaven-ordained, that it couldn't look like what already existed. He had to shape you in a way that made you stand out, because your gift was never meant to blend in. Maybe you've always been the person who couldn't tolerate injustice, who felt the weight of suffering even when it wasn't your own. That's not oversensitivity. That's intercession. That's prophetic empathy. That's a spiritual gift disguised as too emotional. Or maybe you're the one who sees patterns, connections, and meanings that others miss. You don't just hear words, you hear what's beneath them. That's discernment. That's insight. That's the Spirit giving you eyes that pierce beneath the surface. Or maybe your imagination has always been wild, vivid, and intense. That's not childish. That's vision. That's how God shows you what doesn't exist yet, because you're the one who's supposed to create it. You didn't come here to repeat what already was. You came to reveal what hasn't been seen. And to do that, God had to wire you differently. But because the world doesn't celebrate difference, it fears it. You were made to feel like something was wrong with you. Teachers didn't know how to engage you. Friends didn't know how to include you. Even family sometimes tried to fix you. And that conditioning almost worked. You almost shrunk to fit what was never meant to contain you. You almost silenced your own brilliance to gain the approval of people who couldn't see your light. But God never let that inner fire go out. Even when you buried it, even when you tried to be normal, even when you numbed yourself to avoid the pain of not being accepted, that spark stayed alive. Because what's inside of you doesn't belong to you. It belongs to heaven's agenda. You carry a frequency that disrupts the ordinary. You have a spiritual code inside of you that can unlock things others can't even see. You are a walking key. But in order for you to unlock anything, you first have to understand the shape of who you are. And that shape won't always make sense to those who live inside boxes. The parts of you that have been called too much are exactly the parts the world will need in the days to come. Your intuition, your creativity, your deep empathy, your refusal to follow empty trends, your hunger for something real. These aren't quirks. They're your compass, your power, your calling in motion. The very thing you once tried to hide will soon be the thing that sets others free. So no, you're not odd. You're ordained. You're not broken. You're built differently. Stop asking others to validate what they were never assigned to understand. You don't need permission to walk in your gift. Heaven already approved it. You are not here to be edited. You are here to be unleashed. Make no mistake, your difference has always been under attack. Not because it was a weakness, but because it was dangerous. Dangerous to the enemy's agenda, threatening to the systems of conformity, a divine disruptor to the patterns of control. You aren't just another person, you were a spiritual weapon in human form. So from the moment your light began to shine, the enemy began working overtime to dim it. Not by destroying you outright, but by pressuring you to conform, to shrink, to blend in. Because the enemy knows that if he can get a chosen one to believe they're ordinary, he's already won half the battle. You see, conformity is a silent killer of calling. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It seduces you with safety. It offers you comfort if you just play along. Don't speak like that. Don't think like that. Don't dream that big. Don't stand out. The pressure to be normal becomes heavy. So heavy, in fact, that many chosen ones spend years denying their uniqueness just to avoid rejection. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. For you to bury your power so deep that even you forget it's there. Think back. How many times did you feel the nudge to speak truth, but stayed silent to keep the peace? How many times did you see through the illusion but kept quiet so you wouldn't seem crazy or too intense? How many moments did you dim your joy, your creativity, your depth, just to make others more comfortable? That wasn't just insecurity. That was spiritual warfare, a strategy to seduce you into sameness. Because sameness is safe, but it's also spiritually sterile. And chosen ones are never called to be sterile. They're called to be supernatural. The enemy isn't afraid of people who follow trends. He's terrified of people who follow truth. And you, chosen one, are a truth carrier. That's why the resistance against you has always felt personal, because it is. The attacks on your confidence? Strategic. The rejections that made you second-guess yourself? Orchestrated. The subtle shame placed on your boldness, your emotions, your insight? Intentional. Because if the enemy can distort how you see yourself, he can delay how you show up in your assignment. But here's the part the enemy didn't expect, that the very pressure he used to crush you would actually form you. That the resistance would refine your discernment. That the rejection would purify your intentions. That your refusal to conform would make your anointing even stronger. Because you didn't break. You bent, but you didn't fold. You fell, but you got back up. And with every time you chose to stay true to your spirit, despite the cost, heaven marked you deeper. Heaven trusted you more. Because heaven knows, when a chosen one refuses to conform, they become unstoppable. So now, let this truth break every remaining chain of fear inside you. You don't owe this world your conformity. You owe it your calling. You weren't made to be liked. You were made to be light. Let the enemy tremble. Because the very thing he tried to suppress is rising. And this time, you're not going back into hiding. Not now. Not ever again. Before you ever felt like an outsider. Before the world misunderstood your calling. There was a pattern already woven into the sacred pages of Scripture. And that pattern is this. Rejection is often the first confirmation of divine selection. Every chosen one in the Bible, every soul marked for greatness, faced resistance, misunderstanding, and exile before they ever walked in their full purpose. Why? Because heaven doesn't raise up leaders in applause. Heaven raises them in obscurity, in rejection, in pain. To prove that the call is real, even when the crowd is absent, let's start with Joseph. He was given a dream from God that revealed his divine destiny, but the moment he shared it, even his own brothers turned against him. Thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, forgotten in a prison. Joseph was rejected by the people closest to him, but that rejection positioned him for elevation. Because when God calls you, betrayal becomes a bridge. Pain becomes preparation. And Joseph's prison wasn't the end. It was the pathway to the palace. Then there's David, anointed by the prophet Samuel while still a boy, tending sheep in the field. His own father didn't even call him in when the prophet came. Think about that. David was so overlooked that his own family didn't consider him worthy of the anointing. But God did. And that private anointing led to public destiny. Even after slaying Goliath, David was hunted, slandered, and forced into hiding. Yet it was in the caves, not the palace, that he was shaped into a king. Because rejection in man's house doesn't cancel your acceptance in God's kingdom. And who could forget Moses? Raised in Pharaoh's palace, yet carrying the blood of the oppressed. He didn't fit in with the Egyptians, and when he tried to help his own people, even they rejected him. He ran to the wilderness, confused, isolated, and stripped of status. But that wilderness became holy ground. That isolation became the place where God spoke from a burning bush. And that very same Moses, once rejected, returned with divine authority to free an entire nation. Even Jesus Christ himself, the Son of God, perfect in every way, was rejected. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. The Pharisees questioned his identity. The people mocked his origin, and even his closest disciples scattered when he needed them most. But none of that rejection stopped his resurrection. Because the stone that the builders rejected became the cornerstone. Do you see it now, chosen one? This rejection you've carried, it's not new. It's not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're marked. You're not the first and you won't be the last. God has always worked through the overlooked, the underestimated, the outcast, because His glory shines brightest through vessels the world tries to throw away. So don't resent the rejection. Reverence it. It's sacred, it's spiritual, it's scriptural. It means heaven is involved. It means God's hand is on your life. You're part of a divine lineage of misfits turned messengers, of broken ones turned builders, of the rejected turned redeemed leaders of their generation. This is not just your story. It's your confirmation. You weren't just left out. You were pulled out, separated, set apart, not by accident, but by divine strategy. Because in a world designed to condition, confine, and control, those who don't belong often carry what the world actually needs most. Being an outsider in the eyes of the world is not a curse, it's a code. A heavenly signature that says, this one is different, this one is mine. When you're not plugged into the systems of the world, you become available to receive frequencies from a higher realm. Think about it. If you were deeply entangled in the approval of man, in the race for titles, status, and acceptance, your spirit would be too noisy to discern divine instruction. But your isolation became your elevation. You weren't chasing platforms, you were being planted in purpose. You weren't accepted by the masses, because God was tuning your ear to heaven's frequency, not earth's applause. There is power in being an outsider. Why? Because when you don't belong to the systems of this world, you're free to challenge them. You're not seduced by the same idols. You're not bound by the same chains. You can stand up and speak truth because you were never sworn to their silence. That's why your presence has always made some people uncomfortable. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your authenticity exposes their performance. You were never meant to be molded. You were meant to be a mirror, reflecting something holy and raw. Look through history, both biblical and beyond. It's always the outsiders that spark revolutions. The prophets, the reformers, the visionaries, they were never the ones sitting in the palace. They were the ones crying out in the wilderness. And guess what? That wilderness was their training ground, because outside the gates of the system is where the voice of God speaks loudest, where the rules are stripped away, and revelation becomes raw and real. The world calls it rebellion. Heaven calls it revelation. And here's the advantage. When you don't fit in, you're free to build something new. When you're not bound by tradition, you're able to tap into divine innovation. When you don't serve the world's agenda, you're able to move in kingdom authority. That's why God didn't allow you to get comfortable in certain environments. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you were too anointed to be limited by them. He allowed the rejection so you could receive a revelation that you were never supposed to serve their system. You were meant to dismantle it with truth, love, and light. So stop grieving the rooms you were never invited into. Start embracing the blueprint God gave you in secret. The fact that you didn't fit was the first proof you were called to lead. And in these coming days, God is raising up outsiders who carry the fresh wind of revival. People who didn't go through the worldly process, but instead went through the wilderness, the fire, the breaking, and now emerge with something real. You, chosen one, are one of them. There was a woman named Naya. From a young age, she knew she wasn't like the others. While her classmates chased popularity, she was journaling dreams and having visions in the middle of the night. While the world around her celebrated sameness, she carried a quiet storm of depth and sensitivity. Her voice trembled when she tried to fit in, but grew strong when she spoke truth. Yet, for most of her life, she saw her difference as a burden. Something to hide, something that made her too much for the world around her. By the time she reached her 20s, Naya had exhausted herself trying to belong. She straightened out her voice, dulled down her insight, changed her wardrobe, buried her spiritual gifts. She chased friendships that didn't see her, worked jobs that didn't fulfill her, walked into rooms that drained her. And all the while, a quiet ache followed her everywhere. Why do I still feel so out of place? She prayed for God to change her, not realizing that her difference was actually his signature. Everything shifted the day she sat in silence and whispered a different prayer. God, if I'm not meant to fit in, then show me why I was set apart. That night, something broke open. Not in the room, but in her spirit. It wasn't loud, it was a gentle unveiling. Suddenly, moments from her childhood flashed through her mind. All the times she heard what others didn't, felt what others ignored, knew things before they happened. God was showing her that the very traits she once silenced were her anointing in disguise. Over the next few months, she began to move differently. Instead of hiding her visions, she started sharing them. Instead of lowering her voice to match the room, she began using her voice to lead the room. She launched a community for other spiritually sensitive souls, people who, like her, had been called too intense, too deep, too weird. And that space exploded. Not because she had a marketing plan, but because she finally embraced her divine uniqueness. And when she did, her light became undeniable. Her life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became aligned. The loneliness she once felt transformed into sacred solitude. The rejection she used to cry over became fuel for her message. The weirdness that made others walk away, it became the exact thing that drew the right people toward her. Because what the world called too much, God called just right. And here's the part that might shake you. Nia didn't need to become anyone else to fulfill her calling. She just had to stop abandoning the version of herself God handcrafted. Once she aligned with that truth, her steps became ordered. Her voice carried authority. Her presence became healing. Because she was no longer performing. She was walking in purpose. So chosen one, hear this. Maybe your story is like Nia's. Maybe you've spent years trying to hide your brilliance, edit your spirit, blend in where you were meant to stand out. But your transformation will begin the moment you embrace what sets you apart. Because your uniqueness isn't a mistake. It's the mold God used to make sure no one else could carry your exact assignment. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the people you once held close begin to slip away. Not because you pushed them, but because heaven pulled them. And it hurts. It confuses you. You question yourself, wondering, did I do something wrong? But what if I told you their exit wasn't a loss, it was a purification? See, when God sets you apart for something higher, He doesn't just elevate your purpose, He refines your surroundings. Because divine destiny requires divine alignment. And not everyone is equipped to walk where you're going. Some relationships were sent to grow you, but not all were meant to go with you. They served their purpose in one season, but if they stayed any longer, they would have poisoned the next. There were people who loved the old version of you, the quieter, smaller, less awakened version. The moment you started awakening to your calling, you noticed a shift. Suddenly, they were distant, cold, quiet. Some began to criticize the very things they used to admire. Others grew uncomfortable with your growth, not because you became arrogant, but because your light began exposing their shadows. And what felt like betrayal was really spiritual misalignment being revealed. Let's be clear. God is not cruel, but He is protective. And when He sees people around you who would drain your anointing, delay your obedience, or distract your focus, He starts shaking the tree. He allows the conversations to dry up, the support to fade, the connection to lose its spark. Why? Because the version of you that's stepping into destiny cannot carry dead weight. Some connections had to be severed so your spirit could soar. And hear this. You're not being punished for outgrowing them. You're being prepared. There's a difference between loyalty and limitation. And sometimes we confuse familiar spirits with spiritual assignments. Just because you've known them for years doesn't mean they're meant to walk beside you forever. When you started aligning with your purpose, your frequency changed, and not everyone could match that new rhythm. God saw the conversations you didn't hear, the intentions you didn't notice, the envy behind the applause. He saw the silent prayers of those who smiled to your face but resented your growth in private. So yes, He stepped in. He disrupted the connection. He removed the access. Because what looks like rejection in the natural is often protection in the spiritual. So if you're feeling that sting right now, the loneliness, the confusion, the empty space where a friend or loved one used to be, don't rush to fill it. Let the pruning finish its work. Because after the pruning comes the blooming. After the purification comes the promotion. God doesn't remove without replacing. And what's coming next are people who see you, know you, honor you, and walk with you in purpose. Not competition, not confusion, but covenant. Chosen one, hear this loud. If they left, they were not assigned to your next chapter. If they faded, they were not tied to your final form. And if God allowed it, you better believe it was necessary. This is not abandonment. This is alignment. As you navigate this journey, there's a promise that you may have missed, that while certain relationships have fallen away, new ones are being prepared. You may not see them yet. You might feel like you're walking alone. But hear me. God is crafting the perfect connections for you right now. The divine relationships that are coming are not ordinary connections. These are soul-aligned relationships. These are people who will understand you in ways others never could. They will speak life into you when you feel drained. They will celebrate your victories with the same intensity you feel them. And the most profound thing about these relationships is this: they were designed by God before you even met them. Think about it. The divine connections God has prepared for you aren't a random act. God doesn't just bring anyone into your life for no reason. These relationships are like pieces to a puzzle that, once connected, will unlock greater purpose and revelation. God has been positioning people, whether mentors, allies, friends, or partners, who will walk with you through the highs and the lows, each carrying a piece of the destiny He's unfolding for you. But here's the key. These divine connections come at the right time. They come when your heart is ready to receive them. They come when you're no longer caught in the cycle of people-pleasing or trying to prove your worth. They come when you've learned the lessons from past relationships and your spirit is prepared for deeper, more meaningful connections. You see, God doesn't just bring anyone into your life. He brings the ones who can see the greatness in you, who can see beyond your flaws and struggles, and who are not threatened by your light. They are the ones who recognize the call of God on your life, even before you fully understand it. They are the ones who won't just stay by your side in the easy times, but will stand with you when the road gets tough. They are the ones who will challenge you, push you forward, and help you grow, not because they want anything from you, but because they're aligned with God's purpose for you. Some of these people will come into your life through unexpected channels. They may not look like what you imagined, but they will feel like home. There will be an undeniable sense of recognition when you meet them. A sense of, I've known you for a lifetime. That's because, in the spirit you have, your souls were already connected before you ever met in this physical realm. But for these soul-aligned relationships to truly take shape, you must be ready. You must be willing to receive the people God is sending without fear or hesitation. And that means releasing your old expectations of what relationships should look like. God is not sending people to fill gaps. He's sending people to build with you, to walk alongside you in purpose, and to propel you into your next level of destiny. So if you've been feeling the weight of solitude, don't despair. Your waiting period isn't wasted. God is shaping your heart, strengthening your spirit, and aligning your path. He's also preparing the hearts of the people who will walk beside you. Trust that your divine connections are coming. They are being prepared in the spiritual realm, just as you are being prepared in the natural realm. And when they arrive, it will feel like nothing short of divine timing. Chosen one, I want you to understand something profound right now. You are more than just flesh and blood. You carry within you a divine blueprint, a spiritual DNA that has been carefully crafted by God to fulfill a specific purpose on this earth. For years, you may have felt like something inside of you was dormant, like there was a part of you waiting to wake up, but you couldn't quite access it. And in many ways, you felt like you've been wandering, searching for your true calling, wondering when it will finally click. But the truth is, that moment is happening right now. Your spiritual DNA is being activated, and the reason it's happening at this precise moment is because you've been prepared to carry out the destiny that only you can fulfill. This activation isn't just a feeling, it's a divine process happening in the unseen realms. You see, before you were even born, God placed specific gifts, abilities, and callings within you. And in the spiritual realm, these gifts are encoded in your very DNA. But just like any activation process, these abilities don't always emerge all at once. There are moments in your life, like the one you're experiencing now, when the spiritual atmosphere is charged and God begins to unlock your potential. You may have already started noticing subtle changes, dreams that feel more vivid, sudden insights that come out of nowhere, an increase in spiritual sensitivity, a stirring deep within your soul to step into new levels of purpose. These are all signs that your spiritual DNA is waking up, and you can't fight it anymore. This is the season where God is calling you to walk into the fullness of your divine calling. But here's the catch. This spiritual DNA activation comes with a responsibility. As your gifts are unlocked, you will be asked to step into positions of influence and leadership that you never imagined yourself in. You will be tasked with speaking, leading, and guiding others, not from a place of self-effort, but from the power that's being activated within you. It will feel almost like you're stepping into a new identity. In many ways, you are. Now, this process can be overwhelming, because when you're activated in your divine purpose, the enemy will begin to take notice. He doesn't want you to walk in your full potential. He doesn't want you to know the power you carry. So expect resistance. Expect to face moments where you feel like you're being stretched beyond your limits. But understand this, the stretching is a sign that you're growing into your divine assignment. This activation will also lead you into a season of spiritual refinement. As God unlocks your gifts, He will also purge anything that's not aligned with your calling. It may feel uncomfortable at times, but trust the process. God is refining your character, strengthening your faith, and deepening your understanding of His plan for your life. And as you go through this process, you will begin to see just how incredibly unique your spiritual makeup is. No one else can do what you are called to do because no one else carries the same spiritual DNA. In the coming days, you will see your life begin to align in ways that are unmistakably supernatural. Opportunities will open up for you that seem impossible. The people you meet will feel divinely orchestrated. Your path will become clearer, and your purpose will feel more tangible. This is the season of activation. You are moving from the place of potential into the place of purpose. So don't hold back. Don't be afraid to step into the fullness of who you are. Embrace the gifts and abilities that are being unlocked in this season. The world needs your unique contribution. The kingdom of God is waiting for you to rise up, and now is the time for you to take your place. Chosen one, I want you to truly grasp the weight of what I'm about to say. You were born for such a time as this. You weren't an accident. Your existence, your struggles, your triumphs, all of it has led you to this very moment where you are about to step into your divine assignment, a role that is uniquely yours. And here's the truth. Your role in the kingdom of God cannot be filled by anyone else. Your specific perspective, your experiences, your spiritual gifts, all of it is necessary for the world to see God's purpose unfold. God's kingdom on earth is vast, but it is also intricate and detailed, much like a tapestry. Each thread, each person, each unique calling is woven into the greater picture, contributing to a divine masterpiece that will be revealed in His time. And you, chosen one, are an integral part of that tapestry. Without you, there would be a gap in the plan. Without your voice, your influence, your specific contribution, something crucial would be missing. But here's where things get even more exciting. Your assignment is not just any assignment. It's a role that requires your unique perspective. You see, the world doesn't need another version of someone else. It doesn't need more of what's already been done. It needs you. with all your quirks, your personality, your divine perspective. There are people, situations, and places that only you can reach. There are problems that only your experiences can solve. There are hearts that only your testimony can heal. Think about it. There are places in the world that are waiting for your voice, businesses that need your unique vision, communities that are calling out for your leadership, families that need your guidance. The gifts and talents God has given you were never meant to sit dormant or be hidden. They were meant to be activated and used in service to His kingdom. And let me be clear, this isn't about building your name or gaining recognition. This is about fulfilling God's ultimate purpose on the earth through your unique role. You may have questioned your significance at times. You may have wondered why certain doors were closed, why others have walked away, or why your journey hasn't always looked like you imagined. But now, you can see the bigger picture. God was preparing you for the specific role He has designed for you to fulfill. And He didn't just call you to serve within the walls of the church or to preach from a pulpit. Your kingdom assignment may be in the marketplace, in the arts, in politics, in education, in business, or in your own home. Wherever it is, God has positioned you there for a purpose. This kingdom assignment is not a one-time task. It's a lifelong calling that requires continual obedience, growth, and surrender. You will be challenged, you will be stretched, but you will also be equipped. And as you step fully into your role, you will see the world around you begin to change. Not just because of what you do, but because of who you are. You carry the light of God within you, and when you step into your purpose, that light will shine brighter than ever before. So take a moment to reflect. What is it that you feel called to do? What is it that makes your heart come alive? That's not a random desire. That is a divine clue to your kingdom assignment. Trust that God has been leading you to this moment. He has been aligning the stars, connecting the dots, and opening doors that only He could open. And now, He is calling you to step forward with confidence into your divine assignment. God is not asking you to conform. He's not asking you to fit into the mold of what others expect. He's calling you to be exactly who He made you to be, unapologetically, boldly, and with purpose. The world is waiting for your unique contribution, and it's time to take your place. Chosen one, the time has come to embrace the fullness of who you are. To walk in the divine purpose God has set before you, there are steps you must take, intentional actions that will align your heart, mind, and spirit with the divine plan that's already in motion. This is your activation process, and it's time for you to step into it fully. Step 1. Accept your uniqueness as a divine gift. The first step is to accept who you are, all of you. Your strengths, your quirks, your past, your experiences, and your dreams are all part of a divine blueprint. No longer see your uniqueness as something to hide or change. God didn't make a mistake when He created you. He created you with intention. And every part of you has a purpose. So let go of the need to conform to the world's standards or to seek approval from people who don't understand your calling. Embrace the divine gift of your identity. When you fully accept your uniqueness, you begin to walk in the authority that God has given you. Step 2. Seek God's guidance in every area of your life. This journey is not one you can walk alone. The next step is to stay connected to the source of your power, God Himself. Make time every day to seek His guidance through prayer, meditation, and the study of His Word. Ask Him to reveal the steps He wants you to take and to show you the areas where you need to grow. As you seek Him, you will gain clarity, wisdom, and direction. This divine connection will be the anchor for your life, ensuring that every move you make is aligned with His will. Step 3. Trust the process of refinement. You are in a season of divine preparation, and refinement is a natural part of that. God will shape you, stretch you, and refine you to align with His perfect purpose. This process may not always be comfortable, but trust that it is necessary. The challenges and obstacles you face are not meant to break you. They are meant to build you. They are the testing grounds for your faith, strength, and character. Don't run from discomfort. Embrace it as a sign that God is doing a deep work within you. Step 4. Surround yourself with like-minded people. As you step into your divine purpose, you need to surround yourself with people who understand your calling and can help you grow. Seek out mentors, fellow believers, and friends who are aligned with your vision. These relationships will support, encourage, and challenge you to reach new heights. You are not meant to walk this journey alone. God is bringing people into your life who will uplift you and help you stay focused on your mission. Keep your circle filled with those who encourage you to be your best and walk in your purpose. Step 5. Take bold action in faith. Now is the time to take action. You've been prepared, you've been refined, and you've been equipped, but the next step is to take bold, confident action. Don't wait for the perfect moment or for all the pieces to fall into place. Trust that God has already equipped you with everything you need to succeed. Step forward in faith, knowing that He is with you every step of the way. Even if you don't see the full picture, take that first step and God will guide you along the way. Step 6. Stay committed to your purpose, even when it's hard. The road ahead may not always be easy. You will face obstacles, and there will be times when you question whether you're on the right path. But remember, your purpose is far too important to give up on. God has set you apart for a reason, and your destiny is worth the perseverance. Keep your eyes on the goal, stay committed to your calling, and know that every challenge you face is part of the journey that's leading you to greatness. Step 7. Walk in unshakable confidence. As you walk in your divine calling, carry yourself with confidence, not in your own strength, but in the strength that God provides. You have been marked and chosen by the Creator of the universe, and nothing can stand in the way of His plan for you. Walk boldly, knowing that you are equipped for every challenge and ready for every opportunity. Your confidence isn't arrogance, it's the assurance that God has already gone before you and made a way. Step 8. Serve others with your unique gifts. Your divine purpose is not just for your own benefit, it's for the benefit of others. As you embrace your unique calling, look for opportunities to serve and bless those around you. Whether through your talents, your voice, or your influence, make a conscious effort to use your gifts to bring glory to God and to help others. Your divine purpose isn't just about what you can achieve. It's about how you can serve and uplift those around you, creating a ripple effect that transforms lives. Step 9. Stay grounded in gratitude. Lastly, stay grounded in gratitude. As you move forward, remember to give thanks for every step, every blessing, and every lesson along the way. Gratitude will keep you humble and focused on the bigger picture. It will remind you that every success, every breakthrough, and every divine connection is a gift from God. Keep your heart open to receive His blessings and stay humble in your pursuit of His will. Stop trying to belong where you were never meant to fit. For far too long, you felt the pressure to conform, to fit into molds that were never designed for you. But here's the truth. Chosen one, your difference isn't a burden, it's your blessing. The qualities that made you feel out of place, the traits that others may have misunderstood, are exactly what the world needs right now. They are the keys to unlocking your divine purpose. God intentionally set you apart not to leave you isolated, but to prepare you to lead. You are meant to stand out, to rise above the noise, and to show the world that being unique is not only acceptable but necessary. Every challenge, every trial, every moment of rejection you faced was a step toward the moment you're walking into now. A moment of purpose, power, and divine clarity. This is not the time to shrink back or to hide in the shadows. The very qualities that made you feel like an outsider are the ones that will make you a trailblazer. You were set apart, not to be alone, but to fulfill a role no one else can fill. The world is waiting for your leadership, your voice, your vision. Your divine moment of purpose is here. The world needs your unapologetic uniqueness, your distinct perspective, and your spiritual authority. You are not here by accident. You are here because God, in His infinite wisdom, has chosen you for such a time as this. So stop trying to fit in. It's time to step out, to stand tall, and to walk boldly into the greatness that has been ordained for you. Your divine purpose is waiting, and it requires you to be exactly who God created you to be, unapologetically and with all the power He has placed within you.